Hey guys, okay, so I'm gonna film part 2 right now of our packet. I'm gonna go through and we're gonna talk about the vocabulary portion, which you can see I've already filled it out. And we're gonna talk about the graphic organizer part. I am not gonna spend too much time on the vocabulary because I feel like it's pretty self-explanatory, but I am going to go over it. All right, and we're going to start with that. So they're using those highlighted words that were in the passage, okay? Every single word that is in your vocabulary is in the passage. I like this vocabulary because it is not asking you to go find a dictionary. It's not asking you to do like a Frayer model like what we've done in class before. Really, this is all about making connections and building that schema around words, okay? Remember, like we've talked about all year, when we connect with something and we make it personal or we draw on our own experience, that is how we make it solid in our brain, okay? That's that locking in part of building your schema and making sure that these words stay with you. Okay, so here, that's all they're asking you to do is to take, excuse me, every time I try to film one of these videos, I start yawning and I don't know why. To take the words from the passage that we've already read and make connections with them to our own personal experience. All right, so I'm going to go through like the first two, and then I feel like after that it's pretty much self-explanatory. So the first one, it said assume. Caitlin could only assume the cat had broken the flower pot since Pip was standing over the pieces. Now they give you an example sentence. This is not the sentence from the text, but this is just a random example. And then they're asking you, what might you assume if you awaken to a major snowstorm on a school day? So we don't get a lot of snow here, unfortunately. And so we don't have a lot of experience with snow days, but I know from my own past experience that if I wake up and the ground is covered in snow, that means I'm not having school, right? So that's what I wrote. I will assume that we won't have school today. Make sure you're writing in complete sentences because we don't want to get lazy. Again, I don't know why I keep doing that. We don't want to get lazy and we don't want to lose those writing skills that we've been working on all year, okay? Make sure you are writing in complete sentences, using all your proper punctuation and that good stuff. So it says, guarantee. The weather forecaster can guarantee that it will rain soon because of the dark clouds approaching. All right. Pretty much he can promise. He's making a promise. And see how when I do this vocabulary, I take that word and I switch it with another word that makes sense. Okay. Just like we've done in class, using those synonyms to figure out the definitions of words, making things make sense. Guarantee and promise are pretty much the same thing, and I should be able to switch them out one for the other. If you have access to internet and you're confused about some of these words, use dictionary.com. Okay, use a dictionary. Make this easier on you. All right, it's only just about building up your word knowledge. So it says, when else might you guarantee something? When might I know without a doubt that something's going to happen? I can promise it. I said that I can guarantee that if I don't feed my dog, they are going to bark at me, because that's true. Banjo and Bodie, if I don't feed them on time, they sit there and they whine and they bark until I feed them. All right. So that's all you're doing for this vocabulary. You're going through and making connections with these words. Very simple. This should not be a point of frustration for you. Okay. If it is, comment on this video or send me a message and a reminder, text me, and we can talk about some ways to make this easier, but I have a feeling that this is not what people are struggling with. So then you have this lovely sidebar here. All right, in this sidebar it says, an idiom is an expression that uses words in a creative way. Surrounding words and sentences can help you understand the meaning of an idiom. We've talked about idioms before. This is a part of that figurative language kind of section that we've talked about all year. Idioms are hard. Okay, that's totally normal. This is just a refresher on what it is. Remember, it's when you say something, but the words aren't actually kind of true, like it's raining cats and dogs. That just means it's raining a lot. It's a figure of speech, right? So they ask us to use our context clues to figure out the meanings of the idioms that are in the story. The first one being the cat's pajamas. Now, if you watched part 1, we talked about this, right? We talked about how that just meant that something was really cool. And then the second one on page 36 says, get the green light. Well, what do you do at a green light? When you're in your car, you go, right? We don't stop at green. So when someone says, I'm giving you the green light, that means I'm giving you the go-ahead. I'm letting you know that it's okay to do whatever you're doing. All right, moving on from vocabulary. Here we have making predictions, okay? Predictions are something that should be super easy to you. We've been doing this for a long, long time. Here, they are just asking us to do what we've already been doing as good readers. When we annotate our stories like we did in part 1, and we go through and we make predictions about the text like we did with this page, that's all they're asking you to do here. So it says, use the illustration in the last paragraph on page 36 to discuss a prediction readers might make about the story. All right. Let's go back. Page 36. So we're looking at this picture here. Let's make a prediction. I don't know if you can see that very well. We got the mom. We've got the 2 daughters, and we've got the dad. All right. Mom and sisters are talking. Dad's kind of looking off in the distance. He looks a little sad, right? So what is the prediction that I could make here? If I'm reading this, which I did, and if I'm looking at this picture, it's obvious to me that the dad is not really into the conversation. He's not making eye contact with the kids, and he looks worried. So I'm going to make the prediction over here. Let me get back to it. I'm going to make the prediction right here where they give us a little space to write. Honestly, you can write all over this page. I don't care. Where they give you a little space to write, I'm going to make the prediction that the dad is probably worried about stuff. Possibly about not having a job. More than likely. Possibly not having a job, right? The dad, we learned early on in the story that he had lost his job. We remember we're in that time period of the Great Depression. It's the late-ish 1930s, before World War II. And so he was having trouble staying employed. That is something that a lot of us can probably relate to right now with what's going on in our world. And so that's why I kind of like this story, because I felt like we could make a lot of connections with this story right now. Dialect, moving on, next skill. Dialect is something we have not talked about before. So I think we kind of have in passing, but I haven't taught it. So I thought this was a kind of cool little add-in, because dialect is something that you will see, throughout the rest of your school career. So it says dialect, The Day the Rowletts Got Their Moxie Back, is historical fiction. It features events and settings typical of the time in which the story takes place. The author uses dialect, a kind of literary device, to show characters who act and speak like the people from a particular place in the past. So dialect is something that has to do with language. It's the way you speak. There are certain ways we say things here in the South that you will not hear anywhere else, and that is a dialect, okay? It's like when people speak another language, like say Spanish, for instance. If you go to one Spanish-speaking country, there might be words or phrases that are different than another Spanish-speaking country because they have different dialects. Okay, here they're using the dialect in order to show you that this story takes place in the past. They're using things like the cat's pajamas to show you that this is kind of an older story. It's not something that, because we don't hear that language now. So it says characters sometimes use, and I'm looking at this little thing right here. Characters sometimes use dialect, which is speech typical of a place or time. Dialect may include words, phrases, idioms that might sound unfamiliar, which is exactly what we have here. So it says, your turn. List another example of dialect in The Day the Rowletts Got Their Moxie Back. Why might an author include dialect in historical fiction? We just talked about this. They are trying to show you, I'm going to let you find the example on your own, but they're trying to show you that this story does not take place in 2020, right? We don't hear kids walking down the hallway and being like, oh, I'm the cat's pajamas. Like, no. Next section, okay? I'm trying to move fast because I know I don't want the video to be too long. Compare and contrast. The characters in the story may be similar to or different from one another in their traits, actions, and responses to events. You compare and contrast, which we've talked about. That means finding what is similar or different. We compare and contrast characters to help better understand how their personalities and actions affect events or are changed by events. This helps you analyze characters' relationships and the conflicts or problems they have. So, their example, it says, when I reread page 35 of The Day the Rowletts Got Their Moxie Back, I can use text evidence. I can use text details to compare the family members' actions before dinner. So it says, so here's what we're going. They give you an event here. All right, so this one says before dinner at the Rowletts. This is an event in the story. And then they're going to go through and tell you all of the different characters' reactions. I don't know what I'm pointing to over here. All of the different characters' reactions, right? And we are going to do the same thing. And I'm going to go through this with you. So it says, before dinner at the Rowletts, the father sits by the window. Remember, he's like staring out the window. I've got my window right here. He's staring out the window. He's kind of looking a little worried and all that off in the distance. Mother is cooking dinner. Ruth reports about Ricky's talent show, and Shirley thinks she and Ruth can have a talent show. All right, so all of that happens before dinner. Then we've got the event waiting in line at the soup kitchen. All right, so I know it's a little bit hard to see, but that is your event waiting in line at the soup kitchen. In one of the bubbles right here, we've got Ruth. In this bubble, in the next bubble, we've got Shirley. In the lower bubble, we've got Father. And in the last bubble, we have people in line. Okay. Now, I'm not going to do all of these, but I will go through and kind of show you what they're asking for here. So, this will involve you going back in the story. If you don't remember some of the details, that's when we go back in our text, right? Every time. So they are waiting in line on page 37. Pretty much this whole page, right? It starts up at the top. And it's talking about the people being bundled in line against the cold. Many of us had to rely on 2 or 3 threadbare layers. Like many other men, Dad bowed his head as if in shame. The line moved slowly. Bored, Ruth began practicing her dance steps. I sang an upbeat tune to give her some music, and around us, downturned hats lifted to reveal frowns becoming smiles. So in those first 2 paragraphs on page 37, they are giving you all the information you need. Right here and right here, in this little section, they are giving you all the information you need to fill out your graphic organizer. I'm going to go ahead and do Ruth and Shirley with you. So Ruth, if you remember, when she's waiting in line, what does she start doing? She starts practicing her dance moves for the talent show. And then when Shirley sees her practicing these dance moves, what does she do? She starts singing, right? Shirley is our narrator. So whenever they say, I did this, I did that, and that's Shirley. Sorry. Now I'm going to let you go back in the story, and you are going to fill out what was the dad doing and what were the people in line doing. All right, then last but not least, you've got your response to reading. How does the author show the message that a simple action can change how people feel? I would really look at that last page 37 in order to fill that out. Okay, use some text evidence. This is, it's just an opportunity for you to really practice that writing and get back in the swing of things. I'm going to start, so that's it for this packet. I hope this helps. I'm going to start filming part 1 where I go through and annotate the passage, and I will upload those on Tuesday next week, that video. And then part 2, I'll try to get done on Thursday. That way you have some time in between to look at it, answer things, and then you'll have time to do it before you need to turn it in. All right, I hope you guys are well. I hope you are not finding this too difficult. Remember, do not get stressed out over this. This is for practice. This is keeping our brains active. Do the best you can. That's all I'm asking for. All right? I love you guys, and I miss you guys so much. And I'm actually about to film Despero, so look out for that too. Bye, guys.